Welcome to Season 2 of Voices of Value, a conversation between Peter Kakos and Rick Rushton, and their high-achieving guests from professional sport, Olympians, business leaders, and ordinary people with value hacks to share through simple life lessons. If you're keen to reach your next level personally and professionally, sit back and join the conversation with your hosts, Rick and Peter.
Voices of Value, it's Rick Rushton here with my good friend, co-host and bearded one, Peter Kakos. Pete, welcome.
Thanks, Ricky. It's great to be back, and it's great to look at the month ahead and what we've got in store for our listeners.
Elite women in sport, and I think the empowering thing about this is that these are totally different sort of stories. They've all got a common goal. They want excellence. They just don't have a common way of getting there. This particular guest is someone who's moved from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere to pursue her absolute professional sporting ambition. And I know you're going to give our listening audience and our viewing audience on YouTube, make sure you do watch us on YouTube, because you'll see an ugly beard, you'll see a very old looking guy to his opposite, and you'll see a beautiful guest that's we've flown in all the way
this
from...
This really is a rose between two thorns.
It is. No but this particular young lady all the way from Ballina, County Mayo in Ireland, and I'm sure that Pete, you'll give our listeners a bit more context on our guest.
Yeah, well, we welcome Sarah Rowe, and Sarah, Republic of Ireland Women's Association Football International, as well as taking part in two other codes of football, association football, which is a bit like, or it is soccer.
Yep.
Is it
soccer and Gaelic football?
Soccer and Gaelic football,
Wow.
And then of course we've got the a current AFLW for the Collingwood Magpies, Rick.
The only side you should want to come to if you're ever coming from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, I'd love to know why you make such a decision to leave the other side. But welcome, Sarah Rowe.
Hey.
Thank you. Thanks
Sarah,
for having me.
you're a real celebrity back in Ireland, and stop it. But just a quick one. How many followers on Instagram at the moment?
Us Irish are a bit more modest than the Australians, so I'm not going to comment on that.
No,
one.
but it's fair to say it's about 30,000 plus. But
Which
you
I
can
think
have
is
a few
about-
more after this
today.
episode.
That's 29,000 more than you and I combined, so that sounds about right. The math makes total sense. But in all seriousness, the reason why this is an amazing story is because if someone was leaving Ballina, New South Wales to come to Victoria to pursue something, they get homesick. How does someone come from Ballina, Ireland, County Mayo, totally different hemisphere, leave family, and you're in a very tight family, clearly. Your dad is someone who's flying out to watch you train, let alone play. I mean, that's a gutsy effort itself. What was the driving force behind you saying, might just jump on a plane, go down to Australia and see if I can pursue this passion for AFL football, which you really only knew about thinking it was a scam, wasn't it, when you got the email?
Yeah. I suppose I came out to have a look first, so I got the email, obviously, and I was a bit like, I've never even heard of this. I've heard of like AFL men's, but I hadn't heard of the women's game. Didn't know it was semi-professional. So my dad and I were like, look, we'll go over and we'll see what it's about. And he travels a lot with work. So for him to get on a flight and just go halfway across the world is like not a big deal. And he doesn't make a big deal out of it either. So I had like 2 weeks break in college at the time when I was studying, and football, I had 2 weeks off from football as well. So I was like, I'll just go over and have a look and see what it's about. And then I came over, and Collingwood was the first club that I walked into, and like I immediately felt really comfortable and at home there. Maxie actually did an interview with me, and they had a presentation up on the board, and I was just like, I was blown away by this, because soccer at home was amateur and so was Gaelic football. So, you know, the level of professionalism really did blow me away. And then I went and saw 6 other clubs, and I was impressed by them all in different ways, and you could feel different things when you walked in. But ultimately, my good feeling and my gut feeling was when I walked into Collingwood. So to leave family and friends behind is like, it's only for a short amount of time. It's 6 months really. And I suppose when you're goal driven and you have something that you're so focused on over here, it's not that hard to do. So, and also the lifestyle is lovely out here, so I enjoy it.
The weather goes okay. And when you say Maxie, of course, you're talking about Voices of Value's very own Nick Maxwell, Culture Leadership Manager at the Collingwood Football Club, but somebody who tells me that you revered in his absolute culinary abilities to give you the best gnocchi you've ever had in your life. Is that right?
Very good. I didn't really believe it when he said that he could cook. I thought that his wife would cook up a storm and then he'd pretend that he did it. So I actually saw him in the flesh actually cooking it in front of me. So yeah, best gnocchi I've ever had. Myself and Ruby Slicer. So we enjoyed that.
You've already had some incredible success in your first year. And let's go back. First of all, where did the email come from?
So George Voyage, he is involved with the VFL team over here,
right?
Men's, and he watched the All-Ireland final, and he got in contact that way and said, I think the game will really suit you. So it kind of came from that, and then he got me in contact with the other clubs.
Gotcha.
And then it was Melbourne first who would contact me, and then once they got in contact, I just think other clubs seemed to hear about it, and then Marty Clark messaged me and said Nick Maxwell is wants your number, can he have a look?
And Marty Clark, of course, was an expat Irishman who came and played at the highest level in the AFL.
Yeah, there's been some tremendous some Irishmen have joined our great game over here. So it was originally going to be for 1 year, wasn't it? Was that?
Yeah.
Was it 1 or 2? Yeah.
It was kind of like, I'll go out for a year and see how I do, but I did say to them when I was out here, I was like, if I do well, I'll want to stay. And if I do poorly, I'll be too stubborn to leave. So either way, I was probably going to give it a second year.
Well, to win the best first year player.
Yep.
Yeah, for Collingwood in the first year is just tremendous. So so congratulations on that. So you obviously felt at home as soon as you
it took me a while at the start. We had a scratch game early on, and did okay in that, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting the hang of it. And then went into competitive games and kind of wasn't sure fully what was going on. Like, people can explain to you the rules and you can go through loads of video footage and everything, but like, you have to make the mistake yourself first and then figure it out from there. So I also felt I was getting very caught up in the structure and the game plan, and I was like, I'm losing my kind of, my ability to read a game, my instinct. Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to go back to my instinct and be like, I've played soccer, I've played football, see the ball, get the ball, just not overcomplicate things. And then probably rounds 3 onwards, I started to see much more of a progression, and I was much happier with my performance. But it did take getting them 2 or 3 games out of my system, and then I felt more comfortable and got confidence up and things went better.
And I think the other thing to add to that, Pete, is that I have it on very good authority from a certain insider at Collingwood, let's just call him Nathan Buckley, that Sarah on her days off would go and train with the boys just to try and absolutely cement her understanding of not just the game, but as you say, you can theorise it, you can watch it on YouTube, you can do all those things, but until you're actually physically, there's no substitute for actually physically being involved in handling the ball and in-game simulation and situations and running, and to play against the boys would have obviously, I think, expedited your ability to harness the skills quicker.
Yeah, Tarks, do you know Tarks?
Tark and Lockie,
yeah. Tarks and Boydie did a lot of work with myself and Sharni last year, and that was invaluable to me. Just in my days off, the both of them just took the time out, and Blackie as well, who works in the club, took the time out to do probably an hour with us, and Tarks had that perfect balance between, being able to compliment you and give you confidence, but also be able to tell you that's not good enough, and your effort is poor there. So my respect for him is beyond words. I was devastated to see him leave the club, to be honest. But
absolutely, but a great reward for him to go to the AFL AIS Academy program, and somebody who deserved that opportunity. And I think the other thing is Tark's probably almost substituted for your father there, telling it to you how it was and giving you real clear feedback, and then giving you the inspiration to improve, which I think is important.
Yeah, 100%. I was delighted for him, and it's such a good opportunity for him. It was just such a loss for Collingwood, but I know there'll be other people who come into the club who'll do a good job as well, but he really is a massive loss. But I'm so happy that he's pursuing something else. And
last one before Pete jumps in, can you actually understand Boydie when he speaks? He's got the over here, Sarah, don't do that. He's got this real funny voice, hasn't
Not
he?
really, but I could feel him when he was hitting me from behind. I was trying to go for a ball.
Yeah, he wouldn't go lightly on you, would he?
He didn't go light, no.
No,
so
which I think is amazing.
That. Sarah, I'm interested taking you back to Ireland and as a junior and so forth. And I know a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, where did it all stem from? Was it this innate ability for motivation and skill, or was it something that was a learnt process, along the way? But you obviously had a great upbringing. You were surrounded by, quality sports people. Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And was that something that you just naturally adopted, or was it something you had to work on, slightly gifted, or was it something you worked incredibly hard on just to become, the junior that you were, which was incredibly successful?
I think people at the highest level, there's always a bit of ability there, 100%, but there's so many people out there that you look at them and you're like, you have so much ability, but you just didn't put it to practice, or you didn't work hard enough. And being from the house and the home that I'm from, my parents always drove that into me, that it was extremely important to work hard and that you'll really get nothing in life without it. So that's one thing that I pride myself off, and that I know that when I turn up to a football game or whatever it is, that I have done everything right leading up to this point. So that gives me huge confidence going into games, knowing that I've done all the right things. So that's probably that's where the hard work stems from. I think it's from my house and where I grew up.
So the work ethic's ingrained in your DNA. Your grandfather played at a high level, won a championship, All-Ireland championship. So obviously he would have been an inspiration as well. Yeah,
he was a massive inspiration. He always said to me, a good player can kick off both sides. And from a young age, he would make me kick the ball with my left foot outside against the wall.
Use both sides of the body. Love it.
Yeah. So, he was always an inspiration to me, and our family would be quite a sporting family. But I just know that you see it yourself. If you work, those who work the hardest will probably get the furthest. So
nothing works unless you do. I love it.
Yeah.
So 2017 was that All-Ireland final in Dublin at Croke Park. Mm-hmm. Quick one on Croke Park. Is that just like the MCG? Is it just like the mecca of Gaelic? Is that the dream to play on Croke Park? Like an MCG would be a dream for AFL footballers?
Absolutely. It's the dream, and every time I play there, it's just like an amazing feeling. It holds 80,000 people. I think there was 45,000 people at our All-Ireland final, which is huge. So Gaelic football at home is the fastest growing women's game in the world. So it's really coming on leaps and bounds over the last few years. I see where AFL is and where football is, and they're kind of on the same level. They're growing and their standards are improving. It's such a special feeling though, but it's a different feeling playing out here in, say, a big, like the Etihad played in last year. It's a different feeling because the crowd is not your home crowd. You don't really know too many people in the crowd, whereas when you're at home, you could nearly know half the stadium. So
second cousin, third cousin, fifth cousin.
Yeah. But it is more or less the equivalent to the MCG here.
Yeah. And the women in Gaelic football and versus the women in, say, AFLW, whether it be fitness levels, mindsets, all these types of things, is there any significant differences that you've seen between the two codes?
Or
the type of athlete?
Much more like-minded people out here because, it's professional versus amateur again, and you're taught to be a certain way in the club and like this is acceptable, this isn't type thing, whereas there's a bit more of a blurred line at home with your mentality and stuff. And you could have girls at this level and some girls at this level. You have to be quite patient and bring everyone along with you. But out here it's like if you don't do your stuff right, you're going to get pulled up by someone in the club. So that's the difference I feel with mindset wise. And then in terms of ability, Gaelic footballers would be quite fit. In general, at senior level, they'd be very fit because, while it's an amateur sport, we still train 5 to 6 days a week and do very much the same type of training. Probably lift a bit heavier in the gym and stuff over here. It's more like, agile, quick turns and stuff like that, because once you get the ball you have to turn and keep going.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have a habit of doing that when I'm out here. I don't stop and relax, I just keep going, but you can get caught out that way as well. So to learn that last year. So in terms of the athletes, it's similar, but just more Gaelic footballers probably a bit more agile.
Yep. And you got to get up, back more often than you would.
The game doesn't stop. It just goes for 60 minutes. And how you do the rotations over here, you don't rotate at home. If you get taken off, well, the culture is kind of shifting about getting taken off. If you get taken off, it's to get fresh legs on, but sometimes if you get taken off, it's because you're playing badly more so. So you kind of take offence to it. So when the rotations were happening last year, I was like, why are they rotating me? This is so annoying.
We're rewarding you with a rest. No, you're not. You're taking me off.
I don't want to rest. Leave me on.
What about the physicality of the code? Do you love that? You embrace that? You've been known as someone that's pretty physical.
No.
No?
I would probably dodge physicality at all costs, probably. I'd rather be staying on my toes. So that's what I said to myself last year. I was like, there's two things that I can really control here, and it's how fit I am and how strong I am going out here, because they're the things that don't take any talent. I was like, I'm going to have to learn the skills, the game, like loads of other things like that are going to be so new to me, but I can control these two things before I go out. So I'll get myself to a place that I'm so fit that if there is a lot of physicality, I can try stay on my toes and try get as up and down the ground as quick as possible. So that was one thing that I suppose identified as my strength going into last season and this season. And I felt that way. I didn't take as many hits. But then there was one or two games where it was hard getting into games. I was playing in a forward position. The ball wasn't coming up too much. I was like, I have to get involved some way here. So I was going around tackling. Not that my tackle technique was that good or anything, but I was throwing my body about the place. And that way I got into it. But again, that took time, and that took 2 or 3 weeks until maybe, again, the third game. But I got tackled badly one day from behind, and that's the part that you can never really prepare yourself.
Tackled, was it?
Tackled, yeah.
I thought you said you got tacoed. I'm like,
please, Pete, she's an international guest. Let's not offend our guests again. I mean, we said we would never do this in season 3, but tackled. I heard it clearly. Keep going.
So yeah. Do we need Google Translate?
Yeah. Google Translation. Get it up here.
So yeah, once I got tackled from behind, I could kind of expect it then, and I knew I had to get rid of the ball quicker. So that taught me a lot about the physicality of the game and prepped me for other scenarios.
I love, Rick, the fact that Sarah's talking about the strengths and working very much the strengths. I think we were talking about this last year on one of our episodes about strengths versus weaknesses, and or maybe we did or didn't speak about this, but what typically happens is you've got your strengths and your weaknesses, and people work really hard on their weaknesses to get them up, as opposed to what about making your strengths even stronger?
Yeah, we talked about that.
And that's clearly what you've done. Control the controllable. You can work on these things. I can make these things unbelievable, and that will uncover. And sometimes your weaknesses will just sort of dissolve off because your strengths are so damn strong.
Exactly.
That you're heading in the right direction.
It's like someone who's not very good on their non-preferred foot. If their preferred kicking abilities are elite and they've got speed to get themselves back on their right side to kick, well, they probably don't have to work so much on their non-preferred if their elite, agile ability to get back onto their preferred kick to get it further down the line. So I think the other thing I loved hearing from Sarah there is that it's very clear to her that she's come into an organisation where it was very clear what was expected of her. Values were set, behaviours were expected, and so therefore there's no grey areas. So it was easy for you to fit into the culture, and then you bring your gifts and talents, so long as you can fit into the structure of the team and know exactly what's going on there. But I think what I love is that fact that in the off-season you're thinking, how can I get better on the game so that I come back and impact more? So if I am stuck in the forward line, the ball doesn't get down there, I know I've got the ability to use my voice or get some physicality going by running up the ground and tackling and things of that nature. So in terms of 2020, what do you think is going to be, if someone says, I saw Sarah last year and I've seen her this year, I can automatically see where she's improved. Where would you hope to think that people would say, here's where the improvements come from this young lady in the off season?
Well, I'm probably going to play a different position this year, which I think might suit me a bit better. So I think I'd like to see myself on the ball a bit more, get more touches, because I feel like there were some games that I would have came off the ground and been like, there's more in me, and I didn't quite show it. So I want to be on the ball a bit more and be more involved in the run of play. So that probably will be the biggest thing, and kicking again, working on both sides, and that's probably the main areas.
Back in Ireland is I'd love to understand. I'm fascinated by Gaelic football and not unlike AFL here, where it's not played throughout the world, and like Gaelic is purely an Irish football. Is there a lot of pressure on different codes over there, or is Gaelic football like AFL football is to a large amount of people here? It's just that's what you do. It's just like that's our sport.
Yeah,
and more the passion.
More or less it is. Yeah,
Yep.
It's definitely the number one sport in Ireland. Rugby probably second. That's quite big too, but Gaelic football is like everyone prides themselves off. It's where you come from. Like I play for County Mayo. Like I'll never play for another team. That's the way it is.
You're born into that county.
That's it. You've grown up with these girls all your life. You play with them. That's it.
You can't go against them.
If you move, like some people, there has been one or two situations where people have moved to other counties and played for other county teams, but it wouldn't be really, it'd be kind of frowned upon. But it would, like, you could play for a different club in a different county, but you wouldn't play for a different county. So yeah, it's that pride in yourself off, you know, the place you grew up, and that's why it's really special, I suppose.
So tell us about Australian life and how different it is to, you know, the previous life you lived, and what have you loved about Australia, and what do you think you'll miss most when you go back?
Well, the weather, probably number one. So I went home for Christmas for 2 weeks and it was like 2 degrees. I was like, get me back quick. So the weather, probably the brunch, the coffee, they are probably my favourite things to do out here. But yeah, it's just a really nice lifestyle. It's really chilled. Everyone's quite active, you know, wants to be up and about all the time. Whereas I think that's what limits people in Ireland a bit, is the weather. Yep. So it's probably the main thing.
And so we heard at the very beginning of this, you got a lot of DNA gifts, and obviously there's sport in your family bloodlines, but you've got a work ethic that clearly your dad seems to have. I mean, he's travelling from China to Australia to watch you train, play, going back to Ireland to connect with your mum, who sounds like an interesting sort of typical mother hen, keeping everything abreast there, making sure you go be the best you can, but don't forget where home is and don't forget to come on home. If there was one thing that you think you would like to think your parents are saying, this is what we admire most about our daughter making this leap of faith from, and as I said to Pete when we were setting this up, you know, it cracks me up that AFL footballers talk about, I'm going home next contract because I'm homesick, and they've got to jump on a plane and go 40 minutes, you know, one way, and they're already home anyway. But you're leaving a hemisphere to come down under, and it's the other way around too. When Australian soccer players get picked up by UK Premier League teams or anywhere in Europe, I mean, they don't just go, I'm homesick, I might go home and play, you know, in Perth, because that's me and come back to the A-League. For you to chase this, what do you think your parents, I think I know the answer, but what do you think your parents would be saying that we admire this about our amazing daughter?
I think I don't know, I think they just like the way I kind of upped and went and was just really positive about it from the start. Like, my attitude was always good towards it. And the work ethic, I suppose, leaving home and family and all that, like, it's perfect when nothing's going wrong, but if a family member got sick or something like that, that's when you're like, I'm way too far away from home.
Which happened with your grandfather, didn't it? So
last season. So that was a few weeks.
And
I
your
was
dad
like,
was here, wasn't he?
My dad was here, and he was
saying, I have to go.
Yeah. So it was like 2 days, it was a day before round one, and Dad was like, out for my first game, he was so excited, and then he was like, I have to go, and I was like, oh, that did hit me, and I was like, I would be very rational about it. If I got home, I would have been like, you know, people get old age is a part of life, this is okay. But because I was so far away, I was much more irrational about it. So that did take a bit of a hit, but and that's when you kind of realise, oh, I'm very far away. But other than that, my other half at home, he just was actually laughing at me when I arrived in Ireland, because he's like, you literally don't get excited about anything or like over dramatize anything until you land on Irish soil. Like, I wouldn't even be saying, I'm looking forward to coming home. I'd be like, I'll see you in a week, I'll be home or whatever. And he'd be like, literally until I arrived in Dublin, I was like, oh, I'm actually so happy that I'm home. He's like, you didn't show that at all the last few weeks. And like that, when I'm here, I'm very much a type of person who lives in the moment. So I'm here, my life is AFLW, my friends are here, that's my family now. And then I get home, I switch back into that life. So you live completely separate lives.
Wherever you are, be there.
That's maturity beyond years. I mean, it's such a great message for so many people, isn't it?
I mean, it is, and I think Dad gave you the message of, you know, you don't regret the things that you do. Often you regret the things you didn't do. This is something you might regret, so let's go do it. And he was so supportive, wasn't he, in terms of getting you on the plane, coming over with you, researching, and then leaving you then to go and do what he does. What an amazing figure to have in your life, someone who's getting up Asia time when he's back home in the UK, in Ireland just to make sure he's still in touch with his business, which operates out of China, doesn't it? And I think he's based in Hong Kong from time to time.
Yeah.
So I'm getting all this from Maxi, so if any of this is wrong, just whack him. But to have that, to me, that's just an amazing resource to have. And some people might see that as a pushy parent. That's a parent who's saying, you're here, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to give you the wings to fly as well and the self-esteem to go chase your passion. Would that be fair to say?
I think, sorry, just to break in there a bit, because I don't want to sort of gloss over the fact that what you've just said is absolutely magnificent. It's such a poignant sort of point. I think when people go away, and the reason I want to harp on this is because there's a lot of Australians that go to the UK to work or whatever it is, or they go away and they feel that they just have to do it, but they hate it. But I just have to do it. I have to get it out of my system. And it's like, so then what ends up happening is you don't actually end up enjoying the moment because you're too busy sort of forcing yourself to do something, or you're not enjoying it, whatever it may be. It sounds like
wherever Sarah is, she's there.
Yeah, wherever I lay my hat.
Yeah, exactly. That's my home. Yeah, exactly.
It just keeps you in flow.
Yeah, I think some people, I speak to my friends a good bit and they see me in Australia traveling and they're like, oh, I really want to do this, that. I'm like, just because I did it or someone else did it doesn't mean that you have to do it. The grass can be greener at times. Unless if you don't go with a good mindset, you're wasting your time. And I think that's really relevant with training as well. Like some people say, oh, you might be picked on the team on Saturday. And I'm like, they could say, oh, you're definite on the team. And you'd say, that's actually the most dangerous place to be because you can start thinking ahead and thinking about the game on Saturday, not train well all week. And then the game comes on Saturday and your mindset isn't where it needs to be. So that's something I try work on myself as well, is actually being present when I'm at training and being like, here I am, what can I do? How can I be better today? And then focus on tomorrow, getting up and going to the gym the next day and just being present, because other than that, you get 10 steps ahead of yourself.
Would this would it help sort of being away from distractions? I mean, would there be more distractions back at home or less distractions here? Would that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like as in, I got home.
Apart from the fact your partner's back at home.
Yeah. And he's a sports person as well. He plays rugby, so he's very like-minded as well, which is good that he understands that. But my mum say I get home and she'd be like, can you go to the shop? And get me milk? And I'd be like, I have to do training. In my head, I'm like, I've planned on going train at 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock. You're messing with my routine here. Don't mess with an athlete's routine. And she's Mom, like, typical Irish mother. She's like, Lovey, you're not in your own watch now. You'd want to start getting back into the Irish way. And I'm like,
Special shout out to Sarah's mum who's tuning in and going, what is she doing to me?
So yeah, you can be much more selfish out here and just like look after yourself, which is it can be really refreshing and nice.
And you would have seen that with the professionals.
Love that.
Professional sports people are pretty selfish at the end 100%. Of the day because they've got to prepare well. Process precedes results. So if the process is right in the lead up, the result will take care of itself. Just you said something interesting there, and I just want to touch on this one because it's such a rage out here at the moment about elite sports people saying, I'm a sports person, I'm not a role model. I don't, do you feel that? Do you feel that you are a role model for not just young women, but young women maybe not just back home in Ireland or young women here in Australia, but effectively someone who's saying, I want to follow my passion in whatever it may be, and I'm watching this young lady doing it, and so therefore I'm going to model myself on her. Do you sense that? Do you feel that? Is there any weight there with that?
You get a sense depending on where you are. If you're at, like, say, my club training at home and I meet younger girls, I would love to think that I was a role model for them, that I could help them in some way. Because I do think from probably the ages of like maybe 16 to 20, you're trying to figure things out. You can go one way or the other, pick sport or pick social life or whatever you want to pick. So when I get a sense of that, I would love to have an impact on someone else's life and try guide them as best as possible. But I suppose you don't really ever see yourself as that. And I don't think I really had one when I was growing up. It was kind of off your own bat. But if I could impact anyone's life, I'd love to do it
in a positive way. Well, I'm pretty sure you are. So we've heard at the beginning that you back up your natural DNA and God-given talent with a very high work ethic, because what we know is good talent doesn't get everyone over the line. At the elite level you're playing, they've all got talent to some degree, but it's the work ethic, isn't it, that's going to separate the absolute achievers from the players potentially in the field. Your focus is great. Your absolute being in the moment. They're three really good things I'm taking out of this interview thus far. Pete, you're from your end?
Look, it's an incredible mindset, and I think, with want of a better word, I think people in your genre, you know, 20 to 30 year olds are very much sort of cast a certain way in terms of the way they act and the way they, you know, and the way they go about life and so forth. And I think there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of entitlement.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the word, isn't it? Entitlement.
Yeah, that well and truly. But you know, I just see someone incredibly. I think Sarah, from what we've seen today and what I've heard, you're an absolute breath of fresh air, and in a mindset. And there is so much that I'm sure people will get out of listening to your story and sort of following now they're going to get to know the Sarah Rowe and actually continue to sort of follow what your journey is going to be. If we were to, you know, transport ourselves sort of 5 to 10 years down the track, what does the Sarah Rowe look like at 30 years of age, for example? What, you know, how do you see yourself, or do you actually look that far, or how do you go about?
Someone actually asked me, Gotchi, you know, in the club, he actually asked me, what's your 5-year plan? I was like, that's a big question. And I showed him my screensaver, which is my 5-year plan written out, but I don't show anyone it because it's small things I like to tick off when I can. It's like, I've written out things that I'm like, these are the areas that I want to excel in say education, finance, whatever it is, where I want to excel in sport, all that. And it's written there. It doesn't put me under any pressure to achieve any of these things, but it is kind of like a little reminder. If, you know, when you wake up in the morning, like if an opportunity comes your way, you take it rather than saying, no, I'm not going to take it. So like, for instance, life coaching is something I always wanted to study. So I have a life coach at home who I'm going to say she's my sports psychologist, but she's a life coach, and she's an amazing woman, and she's had a massive impact on my life. And I would love to be what she is. Yep. So I anyway came up, and Josephine from OMP Sport.
And we got to thank. Sorry, you do it.
I was going to say thanks to Josephine O'Gorman from OMP Sports Management, your managers over here, for setting up this introduction as well. So
and if we get this wrong, Josephine's going to be all over us like white on rice. So, and I actually think she means it. So I'm going to be honest. I was a little bit threatened by her. That's all I'm going to say.
Straight to the point. What you see is
well,
what
she
you
believes
get.
in calling a spade a shovel, and I think she uses it too. So I was very cool on that one. But no, that's a really good point you make.
Incredible.
Because Gotchi's got elite sons. I mean, Seb's playing BBL at the moment for Melbourne Stars, and he's always big on what's your 4-year, 5-year, 3-year, you know, all that sort of stuff. Just ask him, did he ever want to be a power forward? And Gotchi's not the tallest, but keep going.
Yeah, no, so Josephine just, when she said it to me, well, what do you want to do in your off time? Like, be productive while you're over here. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And she said, do a course. And I was like, yeah. I just said yeah straight away because I had it written on my phone as something I needed to do at some point. You could have put it off for ages, but once I had that written down, it made me feel like, yeah, take it now and do it. Whereas if I didn't have it written down, I probably would have put it off another 2 or 3 years. So
another key takeaway.
Things like that, writing down things. I write down things every night before I go to bed.
So you journal?
Yeah, I would. So I'd tick maybe 3 boxes, and that would be, did I eat well, sleep well, and hydrate my body, because again, controllables. And then if I had, you know, maybe a bad training session, I might talk about that, get it off my system, go to sleep, because otherwise I wouldn't sleep. Sometimes you can't because you're mad at yourself, and of course we all have that kind of down days as well, but it's good to get it off your chest and be like, right, okay, I can cross that off and move on as well, so you can just deal with things as they come.
Last one from me, and then I'll let Pete wrap up. Is there somewhere in your journal where you're looking to improve your driving skills? Do you want to go there?
My driving skills.
On the same side of the road as well.
Thank you, Holden Australia, for all you do for me.
Big plug for the fans at Holden.
I can't.
Tell the story.
Can't drive. Which car story now? Because there's a few.
Well, no, well, I'll let you, whichever one you feel comfortable sharing, because I probably overstepped the mark there a little bit. I might have been giving away where I was getting my intel from there with that question, but...
I don't know which one you're talking about.
No. Well, let's talk... No, which one would you feel comfortable talking about?
I'm just, at the moment, been driving a ute and I can't park it to save my life, and it's been very much documented by all the players.
Talk us through that. You've been working the farms in the off-season, or...?
Never mind the farm.
Picking fruit?
I bring the ute, the outdoor cinema, and I put a mattress in the back, and all the girls watch the movies. That's
Serious?
as far as it goes.
A giving teammate.
Yeah.
How is that?
That's what she's doing here. She could have had a nice little 2-door zippy little thing to get around suburban Melbourne, but no.
I tell you what, I just thinking ahead sort of a few years now, I think there's going to be a lot of young girls and guys as well who are going to be lining up for this bit of life coaching, because what I'm hearing is
I'm enrolling now.
Your modesty is quite mind blowing in terms of what you do. What you've done is courageous in every sense of the word, but you're doing it for such incredibly integral reasons as well.
Very authentic, isn't it?
Very much so, and it's a shout out to your folks as well.
Congratulations.
Way back there in Ireland, and I hope they're watching
Mom.
this, because they should be incredibly proud of you, Sarah, and
your grandparents. They started the whole thing, and if you go to Sarah's grandparents' place, they greet you with a gin, and it's a very welcoming family.
Gin, cheapers, I love that.
Being a non-drinker, I'd probably drink it because I'd be afraid to
Give
say
me
no.
champagne at Christmas, gin, whatever you want.
Yeah,
Okay. We're probably going off the track
And
of
how
an elite
we-
athlete when we're talking alcohol. But
Oh my goodness, it's fantastic.
But no, I think Pete summed it up beautifully. You are a credit to your family, and clearly the gifts you've been given and the upbringing and the opportunities, but you're maximising those too. And I think that we should never lose sight of that, because, the gifts that are given upon all of us, it's incumbent upon us to, take that package and re-gift it back. And that's what you want to do with your life coaching. And I'm with Pete. I'm enrolling for that. So is there an advance rate if we get in? Is there an early bird rate if we get in early enough, like 2020 rate?
I'll try to work something
You'll try
out
to work
for you.
something. And I might give you a card to punt around in when you sort of stack the
Sarah,
years.
what would be one piece of worldly advice, just to close on here today? Because, we love having sports people on the show. We particularly like great minds overarching, of what we do. Looking for life hacks, things you do. As you know, we're in a world now that's bombarded with social media and distractions and generations that are coming through with entitlements. As I said, you've maintained an incredible balance throughout your life, it would seem. If you were to give a listening audience, or the parents out there, or the young people striving to be something, or the business people, whatever it may be, what would be sort of, you're a life coach now, okay? So what would be some of your key, and don't just limit it to one, by the way, but what would be some of your key learnings, key life lessons?
Probably one thing is to surround yourself on good people. Like, I know myself, I have numerous friends, but there's friends who pick me up and there's friends who knock me as well. So they're not technically my friends, but it's to identify that and be able to say, they're not bringing out the best in me. They say that you're like nearly a combination of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. So I think that's really important to identify when someone maybe isn't the best for you.
Sure. So
surround yourself with positive people, and that's what's great about Collingwood. I suppose I always feel like I'm around them people and can always approach people. So that's one thing. And again, I think it's very clear to work hard and to know that everyone's replaceable really at the end of the day, and someone else can come along and be better than you. What are you going to do to step up again? So there's always that. There's always should be that drive for you as a player. And also to, I suppose, as a sports person in a team environment, to always see yourself on the same level as everyone else. And, the minute you think you're better than anyone else, that's when you'll get a kick in the teeth. Tongue twister. I think that's important as well in a team environment.
Well, what I've heard there is a great synopsis of why this young lady is doing what she's doing. And if you couldn't find any quality in that particular interview, then we just suggest you unsubscribe now, because that is as good as it gets. Work ethic takes you a lot longer than and further than your talent will. Clearly surround yourself with really good, like-minded people where you will actually, be supported and advanced along. And the minute you think you've made it is probably the moment you're in the comfort zone and you need to get out of it, because if you don't, someone's going to come and whack you out of it anyway. way. So it's better off if you keep on progressing the way that Sarah has done. Sarah, it's been absolutely refreshing. I, like Peter, are so thrilled when we interview elite sports people, as we did in Series 2, where we interviewed a young cricketer who was of a very young age but spoke well beyond wisdom beyond his years, and I sense that with you as well. If you're listening to this and you know there's a young person in your life who needs to hear this interview, please share this link with them, and by all means make sure you give us some feedback and rate the content, because Sarah will demand more of herself than anything we can give her in terms of feedback from this. But Pete and I are very keen to make sure that we're bringing to you genuine voices of value that are helping you, your family, your networks, the people you care about the most to be better than you are today than you were yesterday. That's what we want, just a little bit of incremental growth. In this year of 2020, we're focusing this whole month on elite women who are empowering. They're empowering women, but not disempowering anyone else. They're just actually helping people get better with life hacks, as we've just had so eloquently shared with a beautiful accent, probably the best accent we've interviewed in our 3 seasons to date. Didn't need Google Translation. I didn't think anyway. Pete, I'll leave you with the last word, Sarah. On behalf of all of our listeners, thank you. And Pete, I'll leave you to wrap up with Sarah.
I was just going to say, we'll have to get down there, Collingwood North, AFLW game.
I was going to see, did you like the way I didn't ask? Did you tour AFLW? Because they weren't even in the game at that stage.
Just so I know, did you tour Arden Street?
We played North last weekend.
In a practice game?
Yeah. Melbourne this weekend. We don't play North actually in our conference.
You don't?
No.
Damn it.
Thank God.
Amateurs, mate. Amateurs.
That's okay.
So okay.
We'll get down to a game.
I don't even think North were in the league when this young lady came out and toured. I think that's true. You were late to the party as always, Pete.
Anyway, Sarah, thank you so much. You've given ourselves and our listeners so much value again. That's what we're all about here on Voices of Value. And on behalf of all of us, good luck with with this year. Good luck with and also future endeavours. We'll be well and truly following your pathway to even further success. So thank you, Sarah.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
We trust you enjoyed listening to Voices of Value, a shared conversation between Rick Rushton, Peter Kakos, and their valued guests. Their views are not necessarily those of the wider world, but they should be. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or your preferred podcast source, and we love to hear both your feedback and ratings on the content we provide. Additional information can be sourced through our website, voicesofvaluepodcast.com. Join the conversation again next week when Peter and Rick continue the search for truth, justice, and the value-added way.